All right, now we have a very special guest here on the Dave Dynasty Show. We have Jacob, the Carpetbagger. Jacob, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm very good. Well, first of all, before we're going to talk about some recent happenings. That's the reason it brought you to my show. I got to ask you the obvious question, though. For those of us that don't know, Jacob, what is a carpetbagger?
Well, a carpetbagger technically is a Civil War era insult for someone from the North who comes down to the South to profit. And kind of how that ties into who I am is I am from the Chicagoland area. I moved to North Carolina when I was 18. And kind of what I do for a living is I travel around different places, different interesting places, roadside attractions, museums, amusement parks, other random stuff. And you kind of started doing it in the southern part of the United States, but I've since expanded that to include pretty much the whole country.
Okay. Well, that brings us, you have, like you said, you do these videos. You have a very cool YouTube channel. Why don't you real quick, before we dive into this, why don't you real quick tell everybody how they can find you on YouTube? What do they need to look up?
YouTube.com/thecarpetbagger, or just type the carpetbagger into the search bar.
Well, before we did this, I was watching some of your videos. It's some very, very cool stuff on there. I advise everybody to go out and check you out. But we're not really here to talk about your YouTube channel per se. Recently, you've had some issues with Indiana wrestling manager Mortimer Blankenship. So how did all this start with you and Morty?
Last year, I was invited as a special guest to Supreme Wrestling, with which Morty is associated with. Mortimer, so for some reason, took issue with my participation in the event, which led to me taking on Leon Elliott as his manager and facing off against Eric Draven, one of Mortimer's proteges. Mm-hmm. And me and Leon were victorious that night, and thought that was it. But then I noticed that Morty was walking around, seemingly copying me with his mutton chops. My mutton chops are a very big part of my character, mm-hmm. my intellectual property, and it has been stolen by this fanboy Mortimer.
Yeah, and Morty was he's on my show a couple weeks ago, and he had some really unkind things to say about you. And you guys have been going back and forth online, and you headed to Madison to confront Morty. What's finally pushed you over the edge where you thought, I got to go to Madison and do this face to face?
Well, I sent him several messages, increasing in pressure, putting on him to shave off his mutton chops, and he decided to make a little joke about it and pretend like he was shaving them off. And it became clear to me that if I was going to get him to remove these mutton chops, I was going to have to head down to Indiana myself.
Yeah, and it's actually being announced that you are going to wrestle Morty. It'll already be announced by the time the show comes out. You'll be wrestling him on May 11th. What do you think about having to actually step in the ring and take care of this with fisticuffs? What do you think? Because it's been just this verbal thing for the most part. What do you think now that it actually has to come to the physical in the ring?
Well, I'm not a trained wrestler. I have not been trained in grappling, but I am a man of passion and a man protects my individual property, a man that stands up for himself, and I'm pretty sure that this is not going to be a difficult step to take down Mortimer, who's pretty much 100% mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you talked about your mutton chops, and this match actually has the stipulation where the loser must shave their mutton chops, must save their sideburns. Are you at all worried that you're going to lose the trademark, the as you call it, part of your intellectual property? Are you concerned at all about what this might mean for you in your career?
Not at all. I consider this as business that needs to be dealt with. Morty will have his mutton chops shaved. I will have my intellectual property back to myself, and then I will never have to step foot in Indiana again.
Well, yeah, and you seem like a smart guy, Jacob, right? You're obviously well traveled.
Okay.
Have you thought about you mentioned Eric Draven and Roger Malcolm, custom made. Have you thought ahead about what if these two guys are very likely to stick their nose in if Morty needs it? Are you thinking ahead and planning this out? What would happen if these guys interfere?
Yes, I have. I will come with backup. I will make sure that my bases are covered. I've recently become associated with a wrestler, a 6 foot tall, 437-pound giant by the name of Jacob Johns, the Midwest Monster.
Yeah, and is Jacob helping you prepare for Morty? Is he helping you train? Is he helping getting you physically and mentally ready for what's to come?
Yeah. I'm using my various wrestling connections. I will be well prepared.
Well, that's going to be a very, very fun show. Not only you and Morty, but also it's very cool. There's going to be a real one-time kind of appearance by Jerry the King Lawler. I got to ask you, is there a chance that we could see the King show up in your YouTube show? Any plans there for you to interact with the King? Any?
I don't know. We'll see how things go. One of my personal heroes is Andy Kaufman, so we'll see what happens.
Well, I advise everybody to go out, like we talked about earlier, subscribe to Jacob's YouTube channel because you don't know what's going to show up on his channel. He's got some cool stuff up there. Jacob, thank you for coming on. You got any final words for Mortimer Blankenship? Excuse me. Before your big match on May 11th for Supreme Wrestling in Madison, Indiana.
Yeah, my only advice would be for Mortimer, if he wants to save himself the indignity, show up, shave your sideburns off before the match, put them in a plastic bag, and hand it to me in the ring, and you will save yourself the humiliation of having to deal with me.
There you go, Morty. You got your out. Jacob, thank you for coming on. I plan to be at that show, so hopefully I'll say hi. We'll get to see each other. Should be a fun show, May 11th, Supreme Wrestling in Madison, Indiana. Jacob the Carpetbagger versus Mortimer Blankenship. The loser must shave off their mutton chops. Make sure you be there. Jacob, thank you for coming on. We will talk to you soon and see you May 11th in Madison.
All right. Thank you for having me.